So the next one is employing your spouse or children. Also something that I have done. Tell us about
Same.
this, how it works, why you might want to consider it, and where the lines are.
Yep, yep. I do the same. I have four children. My three oldest are working in my business, and so I I use the court tested age of 7 as the minimum age, and that's just what's, like I said, been tested. I've seen other people do much younger. I've sometimes had clients try to do like their 1 year old or their 2 year old. And I mean, they've gone off the old, what I feel is an old strategy model of, hey, my kids are models in my business. And I feel like back in the day that worked really well because I mean it was really difficult. Not everybody had cameras like we do now. If they were doing other things, then great. But um, most of the time now, to justify, let's say, if you want to do enough to put money into the Roth IRA, like you want to pay them $6,500, and next year it's 2024, it's 7,000. It's hard to justify an annual salary for one picture on your website of that. So it's really important when you go to hire a child that they have a legitimate job in your business. So you want to actually create a, a job role, responsibility card for them, and also keep track of the hours that they're working. So, like for my kids, for example, they're shredding paper, they're stuffing envelopes, they're stamping envelopes, they're cleaning my office. All I want to basically create enough work for them that they can earn their $6,500 or 7,000, however much the Roth IRA contribution is. So then that way I can start going and putting money towards their retirement. Where people get in trouble is they want to hire their, you know, 7-year-old kid and pay them, $14,000 a year. And they're not doing the proper documentation and they're not making sure that their kids are on payroll. So they have to actually be on payroll. You don't want them to be 1099 because then they're going to be subject to self-employment tax on their return. So, but it's great if you have like a sole proprietorship or a partnership. You're not having to pay any tax on, at all, income tax or, for federal or state, as well as Social Security and Medicare tax if they're in either of those types of entities. If they're an S Corp or a C Corp, yes, you have to pay Social Security and Medicare. But yeah, overall, the major areas that I find people having problems is not properly documenting, not having a separate bank account for their kids, putting that money into their going and spending that money on non-kid things, whether it's their retirement or, parents take it out and then spend money, at the grocery store or such instead of like, on kids' activities, et cetera. So it really needs to be geared towards the kids. But the whole point is to try to write off some of the support and get a deduction for the business. And then you're shifting that income from your higher tax bracket to their, ideally zero tax bracket.
Yeah. I think the keys are legitimate work, legitimate pay for that work,
Yeah.
right? And then proper documentation because they're employees. You got to do an I-9. You got to do a W-4, W-2, W-3 every year. You got to have a time card. You got to have a separate bank account. And as you mentioned, I don't want people to gloss over this too quickly. This doesn't work for a corporation. It only works for sole proprietorship or partnership where the only owners are your parents. So if the structure of your business is an S corp, you're going to need another business if you're going to do this. I've never paid my kids enough to max out a Roth IRA. I always thought that was a little excessive, even with a good timesheet for the work they were doing. But I paid them a few thousand for a number of years. So it's have you seen this sort of thing audited frequently or no?
No, I mean, knock on wood.
Yeah.
I don't see it very often. I know some people worry about, well, how can my kid be working? Aren't there like child labor laws and such? But there is a federal exemption against that, especially if your kid's working for your personal business. And I have to disagree with you a little bit on not doing it for a S corp or in the C corp, a corporation. You can still do it. You just have to pay the Social Security and Medicare tax. But
Right.
a lot of the
Right.
times, the tax savings is still going to be more than what you're paying, and adding your kid to your payroll, as well as having the paying the payroll taxes on it.
Yeah. You mentioned the IRS age of 7. And I can tell people, having done this younger than 7, you will get a letter every year. It actually comes from the Social Security folks. And the letter has about 3 questions on it. What is this person doing for your business is the main thing. What is the job? And you got to put a job description in there. I never heard back from them after sending that in, but I've had to send it in when I had kids younger than 7. So expect to hear from somebody if you got a really young kid you're using as a model or something like that. Okay, now another one I get asked a lot by docs is they're a 1099 or something, and they want to employ their spouse. And I think the main goal they have most of the time is to be able to make 401k contributions for the spouse is what seems to be the goal. Can you talk about employing your spouse and where the lines are?
Yeah. So that's exactly how the conversation usually goes with my clients as well. The only reason to really employ a spouse is to let them participate in retirement. And it's the same thing, though, as with the kids. They have to have a legitimate job in your business, and you have to treat them just like any other employee. There's some other benefits could be that if, you go travel somewhere for business and your spouse has the legitimate reason for coming with you, then you can go and write off their travel expenses as well. So there are some benefits to it, but you just have to make sure that the what you're paying in Social Security and Medicare isn't more than what any other tax savings would be. And I've even used this strategy for hiring parents. So if you have a parent that you're supporting, and let's say you send them $1,000 a month, and you want to write off their support, and they can have a legitimate job in your business, well, have them do some admin work for you, have them do something in the business. So in that way you can write that $1,000 a month off through the business. You just have to be careful if you have older parents that might be on Social Security or have any other state benefits, that if their income increases, it might make them ineligible. So that's something you just got to work with your tax advisor on, and just look at the numbers to make sure it works out. You're not screwing your parents over.
Yeah. Yeah. The other thing I think people get really abusive on these is the spouse isn't doing anything. They're
Yes.
not actually doing any legitimate work. They're just trying to put them on payroll.
Yeah.
And so that's usually what I emphasize to people is, yeah, if your business has actually hired your spouse to do real work and is paying them a fair wage for that work, then you can do this. But a lot of times what that means for a stay-at-home parent married to a doc is that they're paying a whole bunch more in Social Security tax than they would otherwise. And they're still paying at that couple's marginal tax rate. So you're not saving anything on tax here usually. You're getting access to another retirement account and maybe the ability to write off some expenses.
Yeah.
The hosts of The White Coat Investor are not licensed accountants, attorneys, or financial advisors. This podcast is for your entertainment and information only. It should not be considered professional or personalized financial advice. You should consult the appropriate professional for specific advice relating to your situation.